And now, Legal Perspective with Allie Menegakis.
Before many criminal cases ever reach a courtroom, they first pass through a grand jury. But what actually happens behind those closed doors? Let's welcome back Allie Menegakis, attorney with the Clekis law firm, on this Legal Perspective. Welcome back.
Thank you.
Okay, so we've heard grand jury indictments and grand jury this, grand jury. What is a grand jury?
You know, a grand jury, a lot of people think a grand jury is the same as a regular jury for a trial, but it's not. So the main difference is that a grand jury is really a secret proceeding. It includes, at least in South Carolina, 18 jurors. They serve for a year and they meet a few times a month. And their job is not to determine guilt or innocence, as opposed to a trial jury for criminal or civil cases, but to determine whether there's probable cause to charge someone with something. And the reason originally why it's secretive is not because, you know, we're trying to hide anything, but a lot of it was to protect the person that's being accused, right? Okay. So if they didn't actually find there was probable cause to charge someone, you don't want that information out there publicly. It's also, the goal is to protect the witnesses that may come in and testify there.
Who makes up a grand jury?
It could be anyone. It could be you.
No kidding.
Yeah, so
and just committed for a whole year?
Yeah,
Ooh.
Yes, absolutely. You know, they do a jury selection process every year, and they switch out part of the grand jury, but ultimately there's always going to be 18 members. Mm-hmm. And then they listen to the evidence. Usually it's not like a whole trial, it's just like a law enforcement officer or a prosecutor reading what the probable cause is, and then they have to have 2/3 of the 18 members agree either that there is probable cause, which would end up in a true bill or an indictment, or no probable cause, and then find that there's no bill and not charge someone.
How long does that process take? So once you receive the case, how long do you have to deliberate? Would that be a correct term?
You know, it's interesting because there was actually a study done a few years ago about this, and they looked at all the grand jury indictments. And they found, and I'm sorry I don't have the article, but you can look it up, but they found that 99% of all cases that were brought before the grand jury were indicted. And then they figured out that they spent less than a minute on each. So it's a really fast process, and I think that's why there's a lot of controversy there, is that a lot of people believe that it's a rubber stamp.
Oh goodness. Does a case have to reach a certain threshold in order for it to reach a grand jury first? Or, because I imagine that there are cases that don't ever go to a grand jury and go straight to court.
Yeah, interesting. So actually, you have a constitutional right to a grand jury proceeding. It's in the Fifth Amendment. So anyone that is accused of a serious crime in this state, it's a punishment by 30 days or more in jail, then they have a right to be reviewed by a grand jury. And the whole point of that is the origins of it were to make sure that someone wasn't charged with unfounded information. Mm-hmm. So you can waive that right, but no, if you are going to be going to trial or you're pleading guilty, either you have to waive your right to a grand jury, or you have to, it has to go through the grand jury proceedings.
Okay, so, but if it's done in secret, how do you know that you have a grand jury deliberating on your behalf?
You will know when you get an indictment. So there will be an indictment, it's like a document, it says what the charge is, your name, the indictment number, and it'll have the statute that you were charged with.
Oh, I see, okay. So there's nothing undercover before that point?
Well, it depends. So for example, anyone that's charged with a general sessions charge in this state of South Carolina.
What's an example?
So it could be any charge that's not punishable by less than 30 days in jail. So assault and battery in the second degree, a DUI second degree, you know, murder, or even lower level drug offenses, you know, possession with intent to distribute cocaine, for example. All of those cases, once you are arrested, you actually have a right to a preliminary hearing too, which is also a probable cause hearing. But this one's in front of a judge, and the defense attorney and the defendant are allowed to be there, as opposed to a grand jury where the attorney, the defense attorney, and the defendant have no right to be there and no right to see what goes on there. So all of those cases will at some point either see a grand jury or they'll waive their right to that grand jury proceeding.
And to put it into perspective, can you give us an example of a situation where a grand jury was used?
Yeah, absolutely. I think, you know, well, I mean, in the case of the woman that was charged for killing the bride on Folly Beach.
Yes.
That woman was indicted, right?
Okay. Yes.
So that case went to a grand jury.
It did.
And any case that goes to trial, every case in the state of South Carolina that goes to trial and is punishable by a case that's punishable by more than 30 days in jail must have a grand jury indictment.
I see.
It's their constitutional right, unless you waive that right, which most people don't if they're going to trial.
And she was since charged, convicted, sentenced.
Correct.
And now she's appealing that, I believe.
Correct.
Yeah.
And so that indictment is the charging document. So whatever that law or that statute is there, that's what they have to prove beyond a reasonable doubt at trial.
So fascinating. Oh my goodness. Thank you so much, Allie.
My
Oh
pleasure.
gosh, it's just the encyclopedia of legal knowledge right here next to me. Allie, you're fantastic.
Great to see you.
And for more information, you can visit Clekis.com or call 843-9000000. We'll be back after this.
This has been Legal Perspective with Allie Menegakis.